My name is Somkid. I'm 80 years old, and I want to begin by questioning something that the phrase unstoppable forces implies, because most people who hear that phrase imagine something dramatic, something loud, something that overwhelms obstacles through sheer intensity or extraordinary talent, or some quality of exceptional motivation that most ordinary people simply do not have. And if that is what unstoppable means, then the phrase is almost useless, because the people I have watched become the most genuinely powerful presences in their own lives over the decades of my observation were not dramatic in their methods. They were not exceptionally talented in ways that set them apart from birth. They were not running on some fuel of extraordinary motivation that other people lacked. They were doing something much simpler and much more available. They were doing quiet things consistently. Small habits practiced without drama in ordinary days, repeated with enough patience that they eventually added up to something that looked, from the outside, like an unstoppable force. But from the inside, it was never that. It was just one ordinary day after another, with something honest being done in each one. Maybe you have looked at people who seem to move through life with a quality of momentum and capability that you do not feel yourself. Maybe you have wondered what they have that you do not have. Maybe you have assumed it was talent or circumstance or some specific advantage you were not given. Stay with me, because what I want to share is precisely the opposite of that story. I was born in northern Thailand into circumstances that were genuinely modest. No particular advantages, no early education in success principles, no mentor who showed me the secret. What I developed, slowly and through many years of error and honest observation, was a set of quiet habits that changed the quality of how I moved through my days. None of them were dramatic. None of them required exceptional talent. All of them were available to me from the very beginning. And all of them are available to you right now in whatever ordinary circumstances you are currently in. The first quiet habit is the practice of beginning before you are ready. This sounds simple. It contradicts almost everything the part of you that waits for the right moment believes about how meaningful action should start. The people who develop genuine, unstoppable momentum almost universally share this quality. They do not wait for certainty. They do not wait to feel fully prepared. They do not wait for the evidence that they have what it takes before they take the first step. They begin with what they have, in the imperfect state they are actually in, with the incomplete understanding that is genuinely available to them in that moment. And they let the beginning teach them what more preparation never could. And here's what I didn't understand then. Waiting for readiness is almost always a way of not beginning, because readiness, in the sense that most people imagine it, almost never fully arrives. You can always identify one more thing to learn, one more preparation to make, one more uncertainty that should be resolved before you move. The quiet habit of beginning before you feel ready is the habit of recognizing that and choosing to move anyway. Not recklessly, honestly, with the genuine understanding that you will learn more from doing imperfectly than from waiting to do perfectly. The second quiet habit is the practice of returning without drama. This is the one that separates people who build something durable from people who remain permanently at the beginning. Every practice has interruptions. Every intention has days when it is not honored. Every person who builds anything real across time has gone through periods of not doing the thing, of falling back into old patterns, of waking up and recognizing that weeks have passed since they did the practice that matters. The dramatic response to that recognition is either shame or an elaborate recommitment ceremony that produces energy for a few days and then collapses again. The quiet habit is different. It is the simple, undramatic return, without the story about how you failed, without the requirement that the interruption be explained or justified or forgiven in any elaborate way, without the need to feel a certain way about the return before the return happens. Just the return, today, with whatever you have, in whatever imperfect form is actually possible right now. The people who develop genuine momentum are almost always people who have mastered this quiet return, not people who never fall away, people who return fastest and with the least drama when they do. The third quiet habit is the practice of honest self-assessment without self-punishment. This is one of the most misunderstood habits in the whole domain of personal development. Many people confuse honest self-assessment with harsh self-criticism. They believe that seeing themselves clearly requires condemning what they see. That rigor means judgment. That holding themselves accountable means treating every shortcoming as evidence of fundamental unworthiness. But that confusion produces something very specific. It produces a mind that cannot look at itself clearly, because looking too directly triggers an attack. And a mind that cannot look at itself clearly cannot improve in any deep or lasting way. You know what surprised me most? The people who develop genuine capability over time are almost always people who have learned to look at themselves with something like the honest interest of a good scientist. Clear, direct, curious about what is actually there, not harsh about it, not defensive about it. Just genuinely interested in what is true, because truth is the only thing that can guide genuine improvement. The harshness is not honesty. It is protection of a different kind. The quiet habit is the honest look without the attack. The fourth quiet habit is the practice of doing one thing each day that is genuinely difficult, not dramatically difficult, not the kind of difficulty that requires extraordinary preparation or resources. Just one thing each day that stretches the edge of your current comfort, that requires something from you that the easy version of the day would not require. A conversation that has been avoided. A task that requires more sustained attention than the distracting alternatives. A creative effort where the outcome is uncertain. A physical practice that the body would rather skip. A financial decision that has been postponed. One thing. Genuinely difficult. Every day. The reason this habit produces what it produces over time is not primarily about the specific things done. It is about what repeated engagement with difficulty does to your relationship with difficulty itself. Every time you meet something genuinely difficult and do it anyway, you are building evidence about your own capacity. Evidence that difficulty does not require you to retreat. Evidence that discomfort is survivable. Evidence that the other side of hard things is available to you. That evidence, accumulated over thousands of ordinary difficult days, changes your baseline response to challenge in ways that nothing else can produce. The fifth quiet habit is the practice of protecting the quality of your attention. This is perhaps the most undervalued of all the habits I want to share, because in a world of constant distraction, constant stimulation, constant demands on attention from every direction, the person who has learned to direct their attention deliberately and to protect it from automatic consumption is operating with an enormous advantage. Not because they have more intelligence or more talent, because they have more of their own cognitive capacity genuinely available for what matters. Most people's attention is managed for them by whoever is most aggressively competing for it, by whatever notification arrives, whatever content appears, whatever most immediately triggers the pattern seeking that the human brain uses to manage stimulation. The quiet habit of protecting attention means making specific and deliberate choices about where attention goes, and specifically about protecting blocks of uninterrupted time for the things that require genuine depth, not as a rigid rule, as a consistent practice of recognizing that attention is the most valuable resource you have, and that leaving its allocation entirely to chance and to the competing claims of everyone who wants it is not a neutral choice. What most people don't realize is that depth of work, genuine depth, the kind that produces insight and capability, and the quality of output that actually changes things, is almost impossible in the constant interruption mode that characterizes most modern working and living. The quiet habit of protecting attention is what makes depth possible, and depth, practiced consistently, is what makes genuine capability possible, which is what unstoppable actually looks like from the inside. The sixth quiet habit is the practice of ending each day with one honest acknowledgement, not a gratitude list, though gratitude has its place, one specific, concrete acknowledgement of something genuine that happened in the day, something you did that was real, a moment of genuine connection, a difficulty faced honestly, a small act that reflected something you actually value, a step towards something that matters. One thing, specific, honest, not inflated into more than it was, not minimized into less. This practice serves two purposes that build on each other over time. First, it trains attention toward what is actually present and real in the ordinary day, which slowly builds a different relationship with ordinary days themselves. The person who ends each day looking for one genuine thing finds more genuine things, not because more are happening, but because the looking itself is being practiced. Second, it builds an honest record of your own movement through time. Not a triumphant story, an honest one. And the honest record of your own genuine movement, reviewed periodically, produces a kind of evidence-based trust in your own capacity that no amount of self-improvement content can manufacture. These 6 habits, practiced quietly and without drama in ordinary days, do not produce anything dramatic in a short time. They never have. They produce something much more durable. They produce a person whose baseline quality of engagement with their own life is genuinely different from what it was before the habits were built. Not dramatically different, observably different, in the specific, concrete, real-world ways that actually matter for how a life unfolds over time. At 80 years old, I can tell you that the genuine forces in life, the people whose presence makes a real difference in what they touch and who they encounter, were almost never the most talented or the most advantaged. They were almost always the most quietly consistent. The people who returned without drama, who did the difficult thing without requiring it to be celebrated, who protected the quality of their attention when everything else was competing for it, who looked at themselves honestly, without making that looking into a punishment, who began before they were ready and trusted the beginning to teach them. Those habits are quiet. They do not make impressive social media content. They do not produce dramatic transformation stories with clear before and after moments. What they produce is something more valuable and more durable than any of that. A life of genuine momentum, built one ordinary, honest day at a time. Tell me in the comments which of these 6 quiet habits you feel is most absent from your current practice. Not the one that sounds most impressive, the one that you honestly recognize would make the most difference right now in your actual life. And if this message gave you something real to return to, stay close to this space, because the quiet habits are built not in one conversation, but in the daily return to honest practice, one ordinary day at a time.